Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Monster Hunter Wilds talk. Today is finally the day that we're looking at the weapons post-launch. How are they doing compared to one another? Now throughout Beta 1 and 2, we did these little overviews for the current performance of the weapons, looking at the top runs for the hardest monster of the betas at the time, which was for Beta 1, Raidal, and then for Beta 2, Chained Arkveld. The current highest tier monster of the release version of the game is the tempered version of Arkveld, so that's of course what we're going to be gauging things by today. The fastest confirmed runs that I've been able to compile for launch wilds. But there's some important context for this list. Firstly, I need to remind you guys that a lot of skills have not been working correctly in this launch version. And we do have a patch coming up after this weekend. The power or potential run times may change in noticeable ways, even within the week or in the future. So we're going to come back to look at this again. But I have put this list together literally hours before its upload to try to make sure this is as accurate as it can be, at least for today. Two important topics to consider for these lists then is the first one, the common thread between all of these speedruns is the corrupted mantle. The use of this is meant to be simple, 10% affinity for 2 minutes while you're losing health, but when you reach the full state after landing enough attacks while the mantle is up, you get more affinity and raw attack too, which is obviously amazing for speedrunners. But it also does something else. It causes bonus damage tied to certain attacks, which is why it might look like there's extra hits on a variety of attacks in the runs today. This is essentially the corrupted mantle version of all weapons and their rankings because of that, because everyone's running it for that purpose. We'll see if they do anything with the mantle in the coming days of Wilds, but the other side of this is even more important. Josh made sure that I didn't include any runs or organize this list by runs that are using the skill Heroics as a key aspect of this. There absolutely are runs for say bow and gunlance out there right now that will be faster than the ones we highlight today. Heroics is often a banned skill in the TA wiki speedruns, as Josh was telling me. For example, Greatsword would have the best time we could find today if we were allowing that skill, as it has an insane 1 minute and 40 second clear using it. But much like bow, it drops down in its best clear times by an important amount without it. And we're avoiding that in the context of this video because what we're doing here is gauging how powerful the weapons are compared to one another. We're trying to keep all of the runs consistent to fairly gauge the weapons against one another. So with that context, let's begin with 14th place. 14th place goes to Hunting Horn with a 4 minute and 27 second clear. Which is interesting because the rest of the groupings, the timings, they're going to get tighter as we go. The Hunting Horn is essentially behind, at least right now. This run was quite a few days back now, and I do think there's going to be some relevant interest in pushing Hunting Horn as far as it can. So I don't think this is the highest potential of the weapon at this moment. And I remember this in relation to what they did to the launch version of Hunting Horn. They made it so the melody buffs you get are more potent in the launch version if you hold the Hunting Horn, if it's your main weapon. But another way I think this could be impacted by this is the whole corrupted mantle thing. Weapons that are making the most out of that extra damage proc are basically getting the fastest times. Maybe it's the case that Hunting Horn isn't able to trigger that as consistently or as optimally as other weapons, so that could have an influence too. Just something to think about. But above that at 13, we have Hammer with a 3 minute and 45 second clear. This one is obviously noticeably faster, 45 seconds or so faster than the Hunting Horn, but again, it's noticeably behind everything else as we're going to go. With the corrupted mantle in mind, it could also be that it's not able to trigger that effect nearly as consistently or optimally as other weapons. Weapons that are able to, say, use their basic triangle combos, constantly triggering the corrupted mantle, they're going to get a lot of value out of it. And Hammer with its triple triangle upswing is by no means bad, but the meta of the weapon is doing a lot more than just that. So again, I do think it's influenced by that. Above it at 12 is an interesting one though. We have Bow with a 3 minute and 4 second clear. Now technically, if we're allowing Heroics, this drastically changes. With Heroics, the top clear I can find right now is 2 minutes and 5 seconds. A whole minute shaved off the timer, making it one of the best weapons by the way. Bow is interesting. It gets the discerning dodge evade, helping it with stamina, and giving it a very forgiving iframe option while being able to play as a ranged weapon. Using Heroics has you play at low health, obviously, which is a huge risk because if you get hit by anything, you're going to die. So I do think it kind of leans nicely into the Heroics concept. You have more forgiving nature about it. But looking at the true power of the weapon without that, 12th place is interesting to see when we think about how insanely high it was performing in the betas as the top weapon in both cases. Then we had the launch version where they really tweaked the numbers, nerfing the output of the tracer arrow and how quick you fast aim with the focus mode aiming. They did buff normal shots, but it seems like this is a telling result of that tracer arrow nerf. Next up at 11th place, we have dual blades, which was kind of around here in the beta as well. With a 2 minute and 47 second clear, dual blades is by no means doing bad. Under 3 minutes for tempered arkveld is insane. It's also going to make great use of the corrupted mantle because say your usual fishing combo to build gauge, the triple triangle, that's going to be proccing a ton of the corrupted mantle, and so we're seeing a lot of that. It's by no means a bad DPS combo, but it's also still not their optimal or best one. And there's another aspect of this to consider, is the whole element detail of it. Arkveld has really bad element hit zones. Even for the best option for element that you might have, you're not going to get a lot of value out of those elemental hits. And then in this context, it's just not that amazing. So I think those components are maybe what's holding it back in this context. At 10th place though, we have light bowgun with a 2 minute and 45 second clear. Like I said, these timings are going to get a lot tighter now. Only 2 seconds faster than dual blades right now, so they could easily overtake each other. This is really satisfying to watch though. Just absolutely smashing the target with these multi-procs. It's funny gameplay though, that dash shot, dash shot, dash shot, resetting the kind of windows, trying to bypass any animation locks. This is kind of what I was imagining when I was thinking of looking at true light bowgun speedruns. So while it's not, say, at the higher end of the weapons, I do think this is performing really well. Much like heavy bowgun, which is at 9th place, with 1 second faster on its current top clear. 2 minutes and 44 seconds. That is close. This was the setup using the wyvern heart, which is basically, you know, the machine gun style of the ignition mode, which is the same as what we had with the hope weapons in the betas. But outside of that, we're seeing this piercing shot going through over and over, triggering all of these multi-procs, just like what we're seeing with, say, light bowgun, but the numbers are a bit bigger here. Obviously, between the two, it's very close, so I'll be interested to see who comes out on top as more and more speedruns happen now. But next, what I'm really excited to talk to you about is Switch Axe. This is a 2 minute and 36 second clear at 8th place. I'm really happy to see this because Switch Axe had a miserable showing in the betas, especially beta 2 against arkveld with the really awkward nature of full release. It is one of the most buff weapons from beta to launch, and this is really showing in these runs now. Full release spam as aggressively as you possibly can go, even to the point where this player isn't doing a ton of spiral burst slash every time just to get into another full release as quick as possible. It's very cool to watch though, kind of going toe to toe with the monster as much as possible, only stopping to land, say, a sword counter when necessary, activating that counter strike and empowering the next full releases. I wondered in this speedrun would we see any of the offsets being used, but truly at an optimal level, just ignoring the monster and full release spamming as much as possible, interrupting that with a sword counter here and there seems to be the way. So pretty incredible stuff, even if it's minimizing the moveset of the weapon. Right, next up we have gunlance 7th place with a 2 minute and 24 second clear, with 76 milliseconds after that, and I'll reference that fact with the next weapon in a moment. Gunlance is actually much higher than this, arguably 2nd place if you allowed heroics. There's a current run with heroics that was done in 1 minute and 50 seconds, which is absolutely insane. So obviously it can make use of heroics to go even harder, which requires, of course, perfect gameplay because you'll be low health, one-shottable. There's no denying that this new gunlance has amazing output and was a top performer in the betas and remains incredible in this launch version. I hope we can continue to see it push its results as far as possible without heroics, and maybe as the game becomes more established, we'll see more of the TA wiki rules speedruns to get proper comparisons. Because this run was a good week ago, and then this player started to run heroics. So my question is, could they push things further right now if they went back to the no heroics version of speedrunning? What kind of time could they achieve? Maybe even faster than the next one, which is 6th place, Sword and Shield, with a 2 minutes and 24 seconds just like the last one, but 68 milliseconds by comparison. The results with Sword and Shield is really interesting to watch. Essentially, using Corrupted Mantle, you're able to get those extra procs on quite a few of your triangle attacks. But obviously you're going to still go for the charged chop every now and then. So what they're doing is they're just cycling through the basic triangle combo, occasionally hitting with the shield, resetting into the triangle combo over and over, optimizing how much output they get from that corrupted mantle. If the monster does anything, it's going to immediately lead to a perfect guard, which will proc offensive guard for that damage bonus. This can be done from the drop of the hat because SNS is so free-flowing, not locked in animations, which is really nice. With the movement buffs that it got in launch version compared to beta as well, just the smooth way it can move around the target, this keeps this player right on the optimal weak points, maximizing that DPS, leading to this incredible clear time. I think this is really satisfying to watch, and I think SNS is in a phenomenal place both gameplay and output wise. So great to see. But what is surprising is Lance at 5th place with a 2-minute and 20-second clear at the moment. That is insane. Lance was another weapon that saw some of the biggest changes from beta to the launch version, and something that they were really highlighting in that change is how they wanted to encourage us to respond to the monster. Take a hit and basically counter it or respond even harder than that monster. If it hit you harder, then you get to respond harder. But is that how it turned out with this speedrunner's gameplay? Well, of course they're using the corrupted mantle to maximize those extra damage procs and just absolutely poke spam into the optimal hit zones. But kind of like what we just saw with the sword and shield, every time the monster goes for an attack, that results in a quick guard, a perfect guard, and then straight back to DPS. And while this speedrunner is making use of power guards occasionally against certain attacks, most of the time, that's about all I can say for the gameplay. Pokes into perfect guards into pokes, with the occasional power guard when completely necessary. So pretty much permanent uptime for those pokes, maximizing the output of the corrupted mantle. Very impressive indeed. Next up then we have Greatsword at 4th place and technically 1st place at the same time. Because we aren't allowing heroics into these runs to, make things fair, then it's 4th place with a 2-minute and 6-second clear. And this is still a very impressive clear, very impressive run, awesome to see. The heroics version by comparison is a 1-minute and 40-second clear, which would actually put it at 1st place, allowing heroics across the board. What's interesting about the corrupted mantle stuff for a greatsword is the way that it procs off a true charge slash. So you're seeing like the triple pop as they do the true charge. So that's absolutely phenomenal for this weapon in particular. Obviously, outside of that, it's great for speedrunning. You're basically ignoring what the monster's doing. If it ever does something, you go for a tackle and then continue to absolutely smack it around. And then, offsets in this case with this footage are being used quite a lot. I'm happy to see that. It's not just tackle spam, but also a lot of offsetting to knock the monster down. But with heroics by comparison, you'll intentionally take a hit and then take chip damage from using tackles to get you into activation for heroics, and then just focus on the DPS from there. Hilariously, during this run, the player does trigger a sleep as well, so even gets a big wake up hit during a speed run. Pretty cool. Next up, we need to talk about longsword, and we're going to need to mention the milliseconds again. This was a clear that was 1 minute and 57 seconds and 67 milliseconds with that. What we're seeing with longsword is also quite interesting. The old meta of longsword, or what was expected at least from the beta, was a lot of full release after the Helmbreaker. Really satisfying stuff, really effective, all the hyper armor, awesome. But how it's turned out at launch is a bit different. What we're seeing in this speedrun is this player reach red gauge, using the corrupted mantle obviously, and then doing that crimson slash combo, absolutely spamming the target. This combo is really fast, it's new for wilds, allowing you to get great DPS as you continuously land these triangle attacks. And so that combined with corrupted mantle means you're getting all those extra damage procs, which is resulting in unbelievable DPS for this run. So you're not seeing Helmbreaker and full release at all. You're seeing pretty much just crimson slash combo spam and the occasional parry when necessary. And this seems to be the optimal way to play the longsword with corrupted mantle, at least for the moment. Now I'm very excited to say for 2nd place, just ahead of that longsword run, is a 1 minute and 57 second time clear with 5 milliseconds at the end of that for insect glaive. So essentially there's nothing between them. Easily a longsword run could overtake it, it's that close. Still, I'm really happy to see Insect Glaive do so well at launch. Obviously, it had a lot of troubles community-wise through the betas with the lack of the bounce and people missing that. The new way that you're able to charge with circle and then people complaining about the claw grip that causes. Ultimately, we're still performing well in the beta versions. And, go figure, this speedrunner's not doing a lot of the vaulting dance bounce. But considering the ups and downs the community's felt about this new version of Insect Glaive, I'm really happy to see that it's doing so well at its optimal level. Obviously, it's getting a ton of value out of the Corrupted Mantle with the triangle spam, and you've got that new offset attached to the descending attack, where you're emptying out all of your essence for that big super move where you put yourself in the air. This player is just like absolutely spamming the hell out of this monster, opening wounds, and then saving them to fully recover the essence, refilling the Kinsect, and going straight back into that max DPS loop. This is absolute destruction, so it's awesome to watch. But you know, first place has to go to one weapon right now, and that is the very awesome Charge Blade, with a 1 minute and 55 second clear and 13 milliseconds if you're interested. The maximizing gameplay of this is of course all around power axe mode, using the chainsaw. It's so effective and so fun. The optimal DPS that you can do is by doing the ED1, ED2 combo, then interrupting it with a triangle kind of reset, then going back into that combo again. What you're seeing this player do though is go into the amped element discharge and of course the follow-up attack at the end of that, occasionally at specific times. It seems to have great KO potential behind it, so occasionally he's actually going for the full combo to land it on the head for a knockdown. That's really clever tech. Otherwise, repeating that max ED1, ED2 combo reset to absolutely spam the maximum DPS while he's free to. Also, getting the benefits of paralysis here, of course, is going to be really nice since the element hit zones aren't amazing. This run is ultimately just smacking Arkveld while he's against a wall, absolute destruction, and has led to the top clear with no heroics at the moment. Very impressive stuff. But yeah, there you have it. That's my overview of the weapons with their current best clears without heroics. We think this list is going to be a solid representation of their power rankings compared to one another, and I think it tells a pretty positive story. All of the weapons are clearing the hardest monster in the game very fast as one thing, but the grouping of those times is pretty close. Yeah, Hunting Horn, Hammer, they're a bit behind, it's true, but everything else is very close to each other in the current clears. And as I said, I think given more time, we'll see faster runs for the weapons that are behind right now as more people give them a chance. But I'm very interested to see what might change and what might happen when they fix the broken skills. And you know, if they ever did do something to Corrupted Mantle. So we'll see how it all turns out, but I hope this was useful and interesting for you. Until next time though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.